welcome. So if you're stepping on by, then chances are you've seen the mod page and you're wondering kind of how you can make threads of the seasons fit into your load order. And I'm not just talking about in a sense like, okay, installing the mod and whatever, but how you can kind of make adjustments to your load order, because I think it's one of the things that every mod user, regardless of their capabilities as a mod author, I think every mod user wants to be able to kind of tailor their own game without necessarily having to make their own mods, is what I'm trying to say. And so I think that the way this mod is set up, that it's a really good example of how that can be the case, because it does not require users to necessarily have any knowledge of scripting or any knowledge of the creation kit or any of that. It's very straightforward. It's easy to use. All it requires you to do is be able to, I mean, I guess you have to have a structural brain in the sense that you have to be able to like follow strands of you have to be able to follow leveled lists through some keyholes, so to speak, because you're threading them the entire time. So you thread a leveled list in here and a leveled list in there, and of course the depth of this all depends on how detailed you want your leveled list to be. But what I've done here is I've opened up Xedit. I've also opened up the script that I created for the mod. So I'm going to briefly take you through the script, state what the script does, starting with the quest, and then after that, I'm going to get into the other aspects of the mod. And so this will start with basically coverage of everything. So it's not just going to be covering the aspects that are only relevant to mod users who just want to put stuff in their level list, but it's going to basically be for mod authors who maybe they want to adjust the script. Maybe they want to upload their own version of this script for their mod pack. For example, if let's say that EXO, he runs the biggest collection on Nexus, right? And so if he wanted to implement something like this into his 1,000+ mod collection or whatever, then obviously, like it would be kind of helpful to understand what I've done. I mean, of course, he probably has the necessary skills to run through it all himself, but like my point being that not everybody has the same understanding or base knowledge. I mean, I didn't when I started on this, and so if I can try and lay a little bit out there and explain it for everyone, then that's great. So if you're a user and you just want to know where to stick your outfits, then skip a little bit forward in the video. If I'm not too lazy, I'll put some time markers there, but most likely I'll be lazy, so you can just skip until you see me return to the Xedit screen. So on that note, let's jump on over to the actual script itself. So this is a script, right? So what I'll do is I'm just going to scroll on down to to the bottom. So I laid this out a little bit differently because I just kind of laid it out with my workflow. It doesn't particularly matter. It works all the same. But yeah, it's definitely the layout's different. Normally the on quest in it would be higher. But essentially what I've done here is I set up the quest. The quest is set up here and here in the seasonal framework itself. When I set up the quest, and I did set this up within the creation kit, because I don't even know. I don't think you can. And no, you can't, because you have to compile the script. So you can't do that in Xedit. So you do have to do it in the CK. But when I set up the creation kit, I set it up to run once. Okay, so that way the quest isn't continuously running. So this here says on quest initialization update season outfit globals, and if you go look at the quest, you'll see it runs once, and you'll be thinking, oh wait, does this only run once through the whole game? And it checks, and technically the quest itself only runs once, but I did set up a player reference alias, which I specify, I make note of here, referenced by the alias script as well. See player ref alias. And we might be able to see this in edits. I'm sure we can. But yeah, we can see that there is, in fact, uh, an alias script attached here. All right. And so, in essence, what happens is when you load your save game, or if you enter an interior cell, then the game does a check, and it basically runs through this entire process here, right? Which is the update season outfit globals. And so on that note, the way that this works is it updates season outfit globals when either, again, the player loads the game, player enters an interior cell, or, of course, at the beginning when the mod is first installed when you boot up your game for the first time. And so this is just stating here that you're going to be getting the integer value of game month and game day. And these are going to be, that's what you're retrieving when you specify month or day, right? So month here, less than or equal to 2, is saying that you're looking for if the game month dot get value int is 2. And this is a natively defined by Fallout 4, right? So this isn't something that I've defined within the script. This is defined by Fallout 4. And So what I say here is if the month is less than or equal to 2, or the month is 12, or the month is 11 and the day is greater than or equal to 20, then we're going to set seasons winter. So if you're trying to modify this on your own, then the biggest thing you need to make sure you do is you need to make certain that you don't have any gaps. Because basically what happens if, let's say that we define, we define winter here. We define spring here. And I'll get to like Christmas and Pride Month and Halloween in a minute, but we're just going to stick with winter, spring, summer, and autumn. But if you define winter here, you define spring here, summer. Let's say that, for example, we define this as being 1 instead of 2. Then what would happen is during the month of February, NPCs would just be naked because then every single leveled list would have nothing. Now, I have set up basically a fallback for this. And so I set that up here, which basically says that if set season to autumn, because this function update season globals, it stops when one of these if functions endif, right? So it means if this is the case, then end the function here. And so when this is called, it's going to end it. So if this, and because I, set this up properly, it never actually makes it here to set season autumn, but I wanted to set it here just in case there was some kind of technical failure game side. I thought it would be better safe than sorry, right? Because, nobody wants to be running around Diamond City and then have to see the mayor's junk, right? Like, nobody wants to see an entire city of naked. Well, you know what? I'm going to take that back. The community, you guys can be a little bit weird. Maybe you guys do want to see an entire city of nude NPCs, but most people probably don't. And so I just set this here. But essentially, that's how it works. So now we'll get into it. So, I guess the first question is probably why I set this as 11 and 20. So in my testing with seasons change, season change flips the seasonal weather on December 1st, meaning that you walk outside December 1st, instantly snow everywhere. So the problem with this is that if you set this to December 1st, as is the case in the seasons change variant of the mod, which I don't necessarily recommend, that was basically there as a modder's resource, more or less. But in that version, what I noticed is that, so it can take the NPCs, depending on the changes you have set up in NPCs change clothes, because you can adjust the game value setting there. Depending on that, and then how often you return to Diamond City or Good Neighbor, it can take upwards of 6, 7, 8 days or whatever for NPCs to change level of this clothing. So if you enter Diamond City, let's say on the 1st of December, you go inside of I don't know, Becky Fallon's shop or whatever, and then you come outside, you have snow, but NPCs are still wearing short sleeve clothing. Didn't make sense to me. Made sense that people would start wearing really warm clothing before it starts snowing. And I wanted to set it originally to like November the 1st, but then I realized, okay, well, people step out of the vault on October the 23rd. If you have an outfit mod that really includes some really cool outfits, maybe you're going to want to see those on your NPCs more than for 6, 7 days. So I was like, you know what? Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to set it to the 20th of November. Gives it enough time. So essentially, 20th of November, NPCs are going to, the leveled lists are going to, or the globals are going to flip. And then when anyone wearing an outfit pulling from a leveled list containing globals, as I've defined, then when those NPCs, if it's a leveled list NPC actor, meaning a spawned actor, someone that spawns, in a set location or something like as a spawned event, like gunner spawns, raider spawns, that kind of thing. Those kinds of NPCs, wastelanders, etc. They will, as of the November 20th, spawn with new outfits. So whatever the winter outfits are. However, Diamond City NPCs take time for their outfits to reload or re-roll, so to speak, and so it can take up to 6 or 7 days before those re-roll. And so obviously that is an issue. And so I didn't want NPCs wearing summer clothing, or rather non-winter clothing, in the midst of a snowstorm. So I said, okay, let's set it to November 20th. Now you can, if you're a mod author and you're working with this, which I'm assuming most people watching this portion of the video are mod authors, then I mean, if you're wanting to modify the script, you can modify the script. You could set this to October the 20th or something. It does not matter. The only thing I will say is that we have autumn set here, right? So we have autumn is less than or equal to 10 and whatever, right? So if you end up setting, let's say you wanted winter to be October the 20th, here, for example, then you have to move the set season Halloween function here. And then you have to make a modification. Do you have to make a modification? No, you do not. Sorry, I already accounted for that, so ignore that. But yes, you still do have to move sets. You have to move the set season Halloween function here. So you would have if you'd run this if function, and then you just set up a secondary if function. Oh no, you set up a secondary if function here, right? And then that's it. And so then you have two if functions. You're checking to see if it's Christmas. If it is Christmas, then obviously it's not a Halloween, so it returns. And if not, then you're going to set if for, you know, for autumn or for Halloween. I mean, so like that's something that you need to keep in mind. You could strip out the Christmas and the Halloween if you don't really have any interest in that. But I think that kind of extra layer, it's good. It doesn't really hurt much being there. It's not gonna. I mean, I don't believe it's gonna cause any script stack, so it's not gonna cause any issues to leave that extra function there, and it's just gonna check and see. Because all it's gonna do is it's just gonna set a global, right? And then if that global is not applied to any leveled list, then nothing happens. So, anyways, but the way this works, essentially, if it finds this if function, then it's just going to the function is going to end, right? So it's saying endif. So if this is found, end. Otherwise, it's going to continue to go down the list. So then you just make sure that you don't have any gaps. So 2, so that means that February and January are fine. December is fine. Everything after the 20th of November is fine. March, April, fine. May, June, July, August are fine. September, October, and then November through the 19th, which leads up to this day, are all fine, right? So that means we don't have any days within our entire calendar year that aren't covered by one of the main seasons, which is important because if you have any days, even one day that's not covered, then you could end up with, again, naked NPCs. And so then I set up the seasons here, so set season Christmas. Basically, it's saying that if it's winter, then there is a possibility that it's Christmas. So we're going to check and we're going to see. And if the date's here, then we're going to set season Christmas here. And that way I can still maintain the end if function here without having to make it slightly more complicated. So it was just really an easy way to kind of nest these holidays within the original, the main if function. And so then we do the same thing for Pride Month. So this is, Pride Month is the month of June. And then for Halloween, anything less than or equal to this. And the reason that I set these dates, you probably wonder, oh, Halloween, 7 days, why? I mean, the reality is, like I said, it's going to be really hard. It takes a while for some of the reference NPCs, the static NPCs that are placed in the game world. So, Ellie, Solomon, Mo, etc., for them to kind of flip. And so obviously to avoid having any problems there, I decided to set it to 23rd because that's the day you exit the vault. This only affects specific NPCs, so you should not see any Wastelanders, at least in my residential plugin, right? Like your own plugin, you can do your thing. But you shouldn't see any Wastelanders, anything wearing holiday outfits for this. So by the time you make it to Diamond City, it's 27th, 28th of October, probably at the earliest. And so at that point, then yeah, maybe they're wearing them. So that's the case there. Pretty straightforward. So what it does then is once it finds the period of time corresponding to your date, it's then going to say it's going to call on that function. So set season winter. And so then you're going to go up here and you find set season winter. Okay, so for set season winter, what it's going to do is it's going to force all disabled, and it's going to force holidays not active. Now, before I get into that, I'm just going to really briefly cover the variables. So I've said global variable. Basically, I've defined a variable. I've said this global non-winter auto whatever, right? And then this variable is assigned to this global here, right? So I've assigned it as a property in the creation kit so that this here is attached to this. So when I'm calling this here and I'm saying set a value here, I'm specifying to set this value here. And this is a chance of none. Okay, now what that means is that means that if I set this to 100, then there is a 100% chance that any leveled list with this on it will not return anything. Okay, so that means nothing spawns. If I set it to 0, that means something spawns. So what I did was I call set season winter, I forced all disabled. So I forced every single one of these disabled. Even the winter one, I force it disabled. That means none of these will spawn. And then I force holidays not active. Okay? And so that's going to force not Christmas, not Halloween, not Pride, not winter. Now this is important because this one and this one cannot have the same value. This and this cannot have the same value. Like if this one's 100, this one has to be 0. If this one's 100, this one has to be 0. Because you'll have a leveled list that says use all, and it will have this, and it will have this. It'll have two options for use all. Okay, and you only want this leveled list to spawn during Halloween. You want this one to spawn every other time of the year, right? And I'll get into kind of how I had to kind of keyhole thread some of those leveled lists or daisy chain them together to get everything functioning here in a minute. But in general, that's kind of what you need to keep in mind. And then you have non-winter. So non-winter is basically defined as literally every time of the year that's not winter, right? So in winter, everything's disabled. It's going to force holidays not active, and then it's going to force, and then after it does that, it's going to set winter to 0 and non-winter to 100. So then what you have is you have winter is 0 because this comes after this. So even though this here forces winter to 100, this one's going to reforce it to 0. And now this is actually a cleaner approach than the alternative, which is to list every single one of these under each function, because then it just gets messy. And so in this case, this is actually going to be the cleanest way. So everything here is 100. So is it winter? No. Or is it winter? Yes. 0. Perfect. Okay. Spring is set to 100 because it's not spring. Summer's 100. It's not summer. Autumn's 100. It's not autumn. Christmas is 100 because it's not Christmas. Here's the thing. It could be Christmas, but that's okay. I'll get to that in a minute. Same thing for Halloween. Same thing for Pride. And then we're going to set not and then the not active, holidays not active, so it's not Christmas, correct. We assume it's not Christmas unless specified otherwise. For not Halloween, we assume that it's not Halloween unless specified otherwise. For Pride Month, same thing. For non-winter, same thing, right? But then, here's the thing, because this is obviously winter, then that means that non-winter, in fact, should be 100, right? Because non-winter should only be 0 in months that are not winter. So then we say 100, and we force non-winter. Okay, perfect. So then essentially what we have is we have no holidays active. We've set all leveled lists with a winter global to active. We've set all leveled lists with the non-winter global to 0. And all of these other leveled lists, to not active, and all these other leveled lists, spring, summer, autumn, Christmas, Halloween, and Pride Month, all set to not active. And then all of the leveled lists that state that it's not a specific holiday, set to active, right? That's exactly what you want. But now, so then, after we do that, we've now set the season. So now the next thing is we're going to do an if function where we say if, however, month is 12 and the day is greater than or equal to 10, then we're going to set season Christmas, which is then going to call about the second function. Set season Christmas. This is then going to set Christmas to 0, okay? And it's going to set not Christmas to 100. Now, this is where, in the plugin, I'll get into it in a minute, this works, but what happens is essentially, if you have an outfit leveled list, and let's say you have a leveled list that feeds into the outfit, and this leveled list is use all, and it has two leveled lists, and each leveled list has a global. One is a winter, one is a non-winter. We'll call this leveled list 1. I talk about this on the articles page on Nexus. But you then need to daisy chain that leveled list into a feeder leveled list, and you then need to give that feeder leveled list the global not Christmas, meaning that that winter outfit will spawn when it's not Christmas. And then you create a new leveled list called with the global Christmas, and you attach those leveled lists to a new outfit leveled list. And then you replace the leveled list in your previous outfit. Again, we'll touch on that here in Xedit in a minute as I kind of walk users through how to do this, but it is described on the articles page. But essentially, that's how this works, right? Then once Christmas is set, it ends this if function, then it returns and it says, oh, well, this was found, let's end this if function, and since this was found, we're not going to do anything else here. Okay, which means that we're not going to call any of these other functions because we found winter and we're happy. And so then when the winter, and so because of that, and this is why I have to force all disabled and force not holidays, is because we're not going to be calling any of these, right? We're not checking any of these. We end the function, we end the original function here after one of these if formulas comes back as true. And so therefore we have to force each of the other seasons to inactive inactive every single time that one of these functions is called. And so that's why force all disabled, and you get the point, right? And so yes, that is kind of how you have to do it. But yeah. And you're probably wondering, why do we have force non-winter here to 100, but we don't have force non-winter here to 0? Well, because non-winter winter naturally gets set to 0 by the force holiday is not active, right? So force holiday is not active is going to force non-winter to 0. So I've already included that here so that you don't have to have an additional global defined here in every single function. And so that was kind of the purpose of me doing that. So after that, that's it. I mean, now you're probably wondering where did this come from. So actually, for the record, this Bethesda uses the exact same. I don't know if they use the same script because I didn't really look, to be honest, but they use a similar process with. Well, I did look, but I didn't look in great detail. But they use a similar process with the Institute. That's why Institute leveled list items sometimes became available after you had been to the Institute, but not before. And Bethesda controlled those leveled list spawns on loot, NPCs, etc. They would do that through a similar kind of function, global. And so yeah. So anyways, now that we've covered